Hey, good morning, everybody. I've got about 34 minutes. Originally, I'd done this audio-wise when I had about 47 minutes, but I kept getting interrupted and, doing some stuff publicly, publicly kind of gets in the way. But anyway, I want to welcome you. Good morning. This is a live discussion, a debate, a discussion over something that, Silver Quill had talked about before. And Silver Quill mentioned in not one, not two, but three videos. He did one solely on Twilight Sparkle being a princess. He did one called The Great Princess Debate. And then he mentioned it recently in his Get a Life video. That even to this day, you have fans debating and arguing or still discussing whether or not Twilight being a princess was probably the best idea for the show. If whether or not it was a good idea for the creators to jump the shark on her, jump the shark with her becoming a princess. Because if I recall, maybe I'm wrong, maybe some of you can correct me on this, but Lauren Faust, I think, said that her plans were to make Twilight an alicorn, her plans were to do it, but she was going to wait until at least maybe the end of the series for it to happen. Thus, you'd give Twilight plenty of time to develop as a character, basically you give Twilight plenty of time to develop as a character so that when she enters into that role, there won't be no arguments. There won't be no, like I said, there won't be no arguments. There won't be no debates or anything like that. And that might be a fact. But when one thinks about it, and I'm sorry for any bad connections you may get here, but when one thinks about it, people do have a point there. Or Lauren Faust does have a point. You want to build something up to the point that once it happens, the build-up, the anticipation is worth it. Now, one thing a lot of people have said, and I don't know if Lauren Faust has even echoed this, but one thing a lot of people have said is, with them jumping the shark with Twilight becoming a princess, it was basically it was done for merchandising. Just like Cadence, when she was brought into the picture, was done as a merchandise ploy and nothing more. Now, here's the thing though about Twilight. Here's the thing. You could debate whether or not her being a princess or her becoming a princess back in season 4 and up till now is probably a good idea. But I've always had this feeling that as we get closer possibly to the end of the series, and like I said, I believe the series is going to go for a decade. It's going to go a decade long, basically 10 years, 10 seasons. I've always felt, in my opinion, that I believe Twilight's actually going to probably find a way out of this loophole, or out of this princessdom. What I'm saying is that when it's all said and done, I feel Twilight is probably going to rescind being a princess and maybe find a way to reverse the spell, or have Celestia or whoever reverse the spell, so she can at least be normal again. She can normal life. Not saying that, her being in the position that she's in, not saying that not saying that the writers don't try to put her into a normal, or don't try to give her a normal life, as a princess. They try to, there's no doubt. I mean, they have one episode where I think her and her family try to go on a cruise or something like that, and the cruise happens at the same time she's supposed to be basically the cruise happens at the same time she's supposed to also be greeting ponies on said same cruise. So instead of just spending time with her family, now she's got to find she's got to find a way to spend time with these followers, these fans, these people that love her. So, or these ponies that love her. And so at least, when you look at it in a way, they do try to give her a normal, they kind of try to give her some kind of normalcy. They try to balance out a normal life for her, in a way. They really do. Which is why again, like I said, I believe sooner or later they're going to probably do an episode, maybe towards the end, where she might want to just try to get out of that and say, look, I've tried being, and say, half will be like, look, I tried being a princess. I did the best I could. I mentored, I taught and mentored, or, another pony that's just as powerful as I am, in Starlight, and helped her see the error of her ways and help her make a lot of friends and da-da-da. You could have her say, argue that and debate that or whatever and say, look, I've done what I could, but I just don't feel like this is the right thing for me now. That now is not the right time for me to be in this position. And maybe that happens. Maybe the writers write her out. Maybe the writers write the princess thing out for her, and they find a way for her to be back to being a regular unicorn. Who knows? But that was one thing a lot of people were debating. In Fame and Misfortune, they even had an elderly pony point that out, saying that Twilight was better before she got wings. And again, that's something that a lot of fans have said. Silverquill even said that 9 months of bickering is what kind of inspired him to do his first video on the whole Twilight Sparkle deal. Now here's the thing. When he did that video, and then he did the Great Princess Debate video, he talked about basically how some fans felt Twilight being a princess was a good thing, some fans didn't like it, and some fans were in between. But one thing he did mention was, I think all groups did agree on one thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he did mention somewhat that all three groups, those that liked her being a princess, those that didn't, those that were in the middle, like I said, those that didn't, those that were in the middle, that one thing they did say, one thing he did mention that got a lot of people, that, again, like I said, a lot of the group, all three areas of the fandom did kind of agree upon, is the fact that it kind of threw the perfect balance of pony races in the main six off its axis. It kind of threw it off course. Because when she first arrived, when the series first happened, you had a decent race of ponies represented in the main six. You had 2 Earth ponies in Pinky and Apple, you had 2 Pegasi in Fluttershy and Rainbow, and you had 2 unicorns in Twilight and Rarity. So when she became a princess, even though, like I said, there are a majority of fans, majority of fans according to Silverquill, they're kind of like in between. Sorry for the bad connection, folks. Sorry for the bad. But like I said, there are some fans that are like in between. One thing I believe Silverquill mentioned was a lot of them agreed that when she became an alicorn, it kind of threw things off its axis, off its balance, because one was not like the others anymore. Because now, instead of having two of excuse me, two of each in the main six, instead you only had one unicorn. Two of each in the main six. Sorry for the bad connection again. Something's going on around here. I don't know what it is. But like I said, basically, instead of having, like I said, a decent representation of pony races in the main six, instead you had one unicorn, two earth ponies, two pegasi, and now one alicorn. And a lot of people might, and I'm sure during these debates and everything, a lot of the fans would feel that the only way you could fix that is to turn Rarity into an alicorn herself. That'd be the only way. Or turn one of the Pegasites into an alicorn, and there you go. And that might work, but then again, it still throws things off balance, because you're short one pony to that race to make to kind of balance it out. This is where I believe Starlight Sparkle comes in. Starlight Glimmer comes in. I can't believe I said Starlight Sparkle, sorry about that. But where Starlight Glimmer comes in. Starlight represents that void in Unicorn, that unicorn void that Twilight left behind when the writers, when she became a princess. When she became an alicorn, it left that void open. So what did the writers do to correct that? Even though she's not officially part of the main six, although you could consider them the main seven when she works with them, she kind of feels that void that Twilight left behind. She is now taking the spot of Twilight as the second unicorn. But again, like I said, it's like I said, the reason I mention her is the fact that why do you think, in a sense, she was brought into the picture? Why do you think there's been so much focus on her? A lot of people will say, oh, well, they're setting her up to be an alicorn herself. Maybe. That might be true. But then again, maybe they're setting her up to take the spot of Twilight. Maybe be the new leader, or the new leader in the group if the show ever eventually says, okay, Twilight, we're going to focus more on her, or we're going to do a story where you're going to pass the leadership or whatever on to her, and you're going to focus more on being a princess, stuff like that. So when you look at it, that could be why Starlight's been brought in, and why there's been so much focus on her. But mainly, the other reason is so she could balance out that void, or fill that void that Twilight left behind when the creative staff decided to make her an alicorn. Now, however, though, when you go back to Fame and Misfortune, and how that was kind of a meta episode by the writers to address everything we as fans, past and present, have complained about and criticized and praised and all that. When they did the song "We're Not Flawless," I want you to notice how they paired up each of the main six during certain sequences in that song. I want you to notice who they paired off in certain sequences in that song. Okay? I want you to notice that. Yeah, I want you to notice. Think about that for a moment. Who did they pair off? They started off singing together. When they got into the main chorus of the song, "We're Not Flawless," who did they pair up first? The Pegasi, Rainbow Dash, and Fluttershy. And then when they did the second chorus, or the second reprise of the main chorus, or the second chorus of it, who did they pair up? The two Earth ponies, Pinky and Applejack. And then when they got to the final reprise of the final reprise of the song, or the final course of the song, or the final reprise course in the song, who did they pair up? Rarity and Twilight. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Twilight is a princess. She's an alicorn. She's not a unicorn. That is true. But I think when they did this song, and the way they did those sequences by pairing up the two Pegasi, the two Earth, and then Rarity and Twilight, they were basically saying with that last pairing with Rarity and Twilight, in my opinion, I believe the message they were sending there, was not just a message of, hey, these characters are not perfect, they're not perfect, you're not perfect, you need, there's many flaws they have, that just like you have flaws and all that, so nobody's perfect, nobody's the absolute best, but when one looked, getting back to what I was saying, when they did that last sequence at the end with Twilight and Rarity being paired up, they were basically saying, hey, you think, they were basically, in my mind, kind of sending a message of, hey, she's still viewed as a unicorn. She's still viewed somewhat as the same species as Rarity. The only thing that's different is her wings. If you, like you want us to, take away those wings, she's not she's not an alicorn. You take away the wings, she's still the same species as Rarity. She's still a unicorn. So like I said, when they did those sequences pairing up them by race, they were basically telling us, yeah, she's a princess. Yeah, she's an alicorn, but she could still be viewed at by fans that may not want to think of her as an alicorn as a unicorn. She could still be viewed as that. In fact, people still view her as that. If they ignore the wings and all that. So to me, that's what that song was conveying, especially with those sequences. They were kind of still saying that yes, even though she's an alicorn, she still represents the unicorn race. So basically, there's still that balance in a sense of saying, look, yeah, she's a princess now, but she still represents the race of unicorns, along with Rarity. So, to me, I kind of get where they're coming with that. They're saying, look, she's a princess, but she's still somewhat representing the race that Rarity's part of. And this is what still sticks, and this is why it sticks in my mind, that maybe down the line they're going to find a way to take the princesshood away from her. Maybe they're going to end the series and have her say, look, I did what I had to do as a princess, I just want to live my life normally now. And she goes back to being a unicorn. Who knows? Who knows? And we just have to wait and see. The point is, folks, we're not always going to like certain things. A lot of fandoms are like this. The Sonic the Hedgehog fandom is one of them. A lot of people like the pairing of Sonic and Sally, and some people don't. Some people are in the middle of it. Same with the pairing of Sonic and Amy. People like it, some people don't. Some people are in the middle of it. And they always, with both pairings, will always find flaws. What makes it an imperfection? What makes it great? What makes it reasonable? What makes it unreasonable? They will always find ways. They will always find things to critique. And with Twilight being a princess, even to this day, for the past, what's been now, 3.5 seasons? People have and still will find reasons as to why it's a good thing, reasons as to why it's not a good thing. They will find imperfections, they will find its flaws, they will find certain reasonings as to saying yay to it and saying nay to it and being in the middle. But the truth is, when one thinks about it, how many times have franchises, live action, animated, motion pictures, how many times have they jumped the shark on certain things that they should, in a sense, have waited to do until at least the very end? How many? Too many to count, maybe, in my opinion. But what I'm getting at is just because... I'm going to check my time here. Okay, I got about 13 minutes before I have to clock in. But the point I'm getting at is just because something happens, let's say in the middle of the season, or the middle of the show's run, and it's something that a lot of us, including the executive producer, the one that originally developed it for television, and Lauren Faust, feel that it should have probably waited. That's our opinions, and we're entitled to them. We're entitled to those opinions. Sorry for the bad connection. But yeah, we're entitled to those opinions. And nothing's going to change that. Nothing will ever change how we feel about certain things. Nothing will ever change how we feel about things that happen. Here's the thing. Do you think a lot of wrestling fans, in fact, still like the idea that WWE is PG? Or at least PG-13? No, they don't. They don't like it because, one, it takes away a lot of what drew them to the WWE, to wrestling in the first place. It took away the hardcore. It took away that edginess, that manliness, in their opinion, that made the company what it is. That made WWE what it was, what it is and still could be. And basically become, in many people's eyes, a shell of its former self. But then on the other hand, you have people that are like, look, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. You got to see things from their perspective. Maybe it's a good thing, because if you look at it from their perspective, they're a business. They're a publicly traded business. Of course, they're going to have to do it to change things, and maybe it's for the better. And there will be people that will find the positives in this. Some people that will be in the middle of it, and some people that will find the negatives. They'll be on the other side. Again, it's with anything out there. It's like with anything. It's like with anything out there. People have their differences of opinion. Do people like, let's say, did people like the Nickelodeon run of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Yes, no, and then maybe. There were people that were in three ways. Some were in the positives, some were in the negatives, some were right in the middle. People voiced why they liked it, why they didn't like it, and why they were in between. You know what I'm saying? Some will voice how they feel about Justice League Unlimited, or not Justice League, Justice League Action. Some will voice the difference of opinions on that. Some will voice the difference of opinion, believe it or not, on Steven Universe, on Pokemon, on SpongeBob. Every franchise that has a fan base, an established fan base, people will vocalize how they feel about it. People will vocalize how they feel about that, about how they feel about that franchise or about that show. They're not gonna come out and say, hey, and they're not all gonna overly agree of, it's a great show and all that. No, it's the same with movies. Do you think everybody agreed on Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice as being a bad movie? No, a lot of people actually liked it. Some people liked it, some people were in the middle of it, and some people hated it. Angry Joe was one of those people that was kind of like more towards the not liking it, but kind of sort of in the middle, going towards not liking it. What about Wonder Woman? A lot of people feel it's probably the best DC movie that they've done, Warner Brothers has done. But again, you'll still find criticisms. People will still find flaws with it. People will still be negative about it and why they don't like it. And there'll be some people that'll be in the middle of it and be like, hey, this is why I like it, this is why I like it, but here's this. The point is, when it comes to Twilight Sparkle, a lot of people are going to not like, and her being a princess, even to this day, not a lot of people are going to agree with her agree with the idea of her still being a princess. Nobody's going to still agree with it. People are going to find flaws, are going to still find criticisms and flaws to nitpick at. Some people are still going to find reasons as to why it's a good thing, why, this is, why it's a good thing, and here's the moments, here's the scenes, here's the reasons why. People are still going to find that, and people are still going to be in the middle as well. Hell, because they're like, yeah, I agree. This will still be in the middle of saying, yeah, I agree with the good reasons, but I also agree with some of the negatives. So they'll be 50-50. The point is, no matter how much a lot of us may or may not like Twilight Sparkle becoming a princess back at the beginning of season 4, and still being one to this day, hey, we got to look at it as it's just a matter of our own opinion. We're not the ones really in charge, even though people will say we're the voices, we're the ones that matter, we're the ones that should be calling the shots, or at least be the ones that make you call that final shot to make the best business decision. Kind of get what I'm saying? Even though people may come out and say that sometimes it's not always our decision. If a business or a market or a company feels, hey, this character becoming a princess is could make us money, then they're going to do it. They're going to go out and they're going to make that character into a princess, whether you like it or you don't. When you take a look at Wreck-It Ralph, did anybody expect Vanellope to be a princess? No, but guess what? She was. Why? Because even though they don't market her as one, it's still marketable and appealing to hear that a character's a princess. And the fact that they take a jab at that in the sequel kind of shows you that, yeah, even the characters themselves that are princesses don't really consider themselves princesses. I mean, heck, why do you think Sally became a princess in the show, in Sonic SatAM and in the comics? It wasn't because, they gave her a great lineage and backstory. No. It's because it was more mass productive, more mass produced. It was more marketable. Why do you think, as people may criticize, and rightfully so, the Sonic 06 game, why do you think they made Elise a princess instead of some kind of governing body or whatever she was? Because it's more marketable. Heck, Firebrand, sorry for the bad connection there, Firebrand and Silverquill have even said that the reason Celestia, even though it's quite obvious she's a queen, if you will, why, they even mentioned, I think even Lauren Faust mentioned, that the reason she became a princess is because it's more marketable. It's more marketable to people. It's more marketable to the fan base, to kids, adults, you name it. Even though, quite frankly, quite honestly, one could see that she's a queen. And she's more revered than even Luna, which is saying something. The point is, what I'm getting at, folks, the point is that I'm getting at is, if they decided, the point I'm getting at, folks, is with the reason Twilight became the princess that she did, wasn't because story-wise it was her time. From a continuity and story standpoint, people felt that it was her time. No. It was done as a marketing ploy to sell more toys and to try to increase her popularity amongst the fans. That's why it was done. And maybe there's good things that came about from it, story-wise, in the show and in the comics, and that's great. And maybe there's some bad things and negative things, and that's, That's a, and that's your opinion, and that's one's opinion. But in the end, we got to remember, we could debate this till we're blue in the face. We could debate this till the end of the show and beyond. But in the end, we have to remember, her becoming a princess was a marketing ploy. They didn't have to do it, but they did it. And like I said, yes, some good things came out of it story-wise in the show and in the comics, and some maybe not so good. But again, remember, it wasn't our decision to do it. It was Hasbro's. So that's all really I have to say. I'm going to go clock into work for these 4.5 hours I got, or 4 hours, or whatever I call them. Because I got to try to catch a 1:30 bus at least, or 1:32 bus. And I will talk to you all later, and maybe I'll do a longer audio version of this later on when I get home. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I'm out.